Hi, I'm Robert Bacal, and today I'm going to be talking about an interesting question. The question is simple. Can you tell when someone is lying to you? And I've got an answer. In this first part, we're going to be looking at whether you can tell if someone is lying or deceiving or trying to deceive. In the second part, I'm going to introduce you to another concept which is called conversational cons and good faith conversations. Okay, number one, can you tell when someone is lying? Well, the answer isn't simple. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And here's when you are most likely to be able to catch someone who is being deceptive. When you know somebody very well and you're familiar with their nonverbals, how they communicate, what they usually say, when they differ from their baseline, which is what we call our normal behavior, that should be a flag to you that something is going on, that they are communicating in a way that is not normal for them. That's important because when you read about all of these tricks about nonverbals and they look in this direction or they do this with their eyes and stuff like that, that doesn't really work, because the important part in identifying if someone is fibbing to you is that they differ from how they normally talk or communicate. Okay? Really are no universal tells for lying. Okay? And so that makes it easier in some ways to tell if someone is lying when you know them very well, and it suggests that with strangers it's very difficult. It's very difficult to tell because we don't have a baseline. Okay, so for example, I'm often asked, how do you tell if a customer is lying? Well, if you don't know the customer, you don't know what their normal behavior is. So with people that you know, you are subconsciously or even consciously comparing what they're doing now to how they usually communicate. And that gives you some clues. But you've got to be very careful, because you never will know absolutely from interacting whether a person is being deceptive. Okay. In part two, we're going to talk about something which you've probably not heard of before, and that's the idea of good faith conversations and how to tell when someone is communicating with you solely for their own interest and does not have your own interests in mind. Stay tuned. Okay, what we're going to talk about now is what I call conversational cons, and the idea of a good faith conversation. And what we're going to talk about is based on a little mini guide which is called What You Need to Know About Conversational Cons. It kind of looks like this. Okay, and I'll give you some information about that later. Okay, what's a good faith conversation? A good faith conversation occurs when both people act in ways that move the conversation to solving the problem being discussed. Okay, and that means that each party in that conversation is taking into account the needs of the other individual, and the agendas that each person has are out in the open and not hidden. Okay, and you know, you've heard the hidden agenda thing. Okay, and good faith conversations are essential to almost everything that we do, whether it's at home, relationships, business relationships, for example. Okay, now when you've got bad faith conversations, then you get into manipulation and hidden agendas. Okay, so hang in there a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about So let's talk about conversational cons, or bad faith conversations. A bad faith conversation might include statements like, you never take out the garbage, or why are you dumping all of this on me? Notice these aren't really linked to the issue of the current garbage issue, but to other underlying issues and feelings. People who say these kinds of things, conversations in which these occur, tend to go sideways. Okay, because what's being talked about is not really what's being talked about, and that's where the problem is. Someone has an axe to grind, for example, or a set of resentments, and they are coming out about in this conversation, which is supposed to be about one thing, but is actually about the resentment. Okay, and that's sort of like the hidden agenda thing. Okay, conversational cons involve people trying to create bad faith conversation, intentionally or unintentionally, using a wide range of what we call cons. These are statements and questions that tend to obscure or hide the issue under discussion, or create in the other person one or more of the following: it's confusion, embarrassment, intimidation, anxiety, or other strong negative emotions. Okay. Now the thing is with conversational cons, it's a little different than lying, is that there are a number of things that people do in conversational cons, and you can identify them. So you can say, something is going on here that's not out in the open. And in this mini guide, we have about 20 different methods that people use to pursue those hidden agendas, and perhaps to put you at a disadvantage or to manipulate you. And just quickly, I'll go through a couple of them. There's too many to go through on the video. But here's some common conversational cons. This is the sympathy or pity con. It's the kids do this a lot. All my friends get to stay out late and they make fun of me, so can I stay out late? Okay, you probably heard that if you have kids. It's the poor me kind of thing. And what you look for is patterns in a conversation. And the patterns will tell you whether there's a hidden agenda going on. When people start talking about always and never, okay, you never take out the garbage, or why are you always late getting your projects done? That's an indicator that they're operating on a kind of a bad faith conversation. They're trying to get something across to you about a greater issue, and they're tagging it onto, let's say, the garbage. Okay. There are appeals to authority cons, the unnamed they con, the status and knowledge con, and so on and so forth. Now, what's important here is that you can identify when these are happening, and when you see these things coming up, the first thing that you should be thinking about is, something is going on.